So today I am speaking with Jeffrey Shaw, and we're going to be speaking about the Self-Employed Business Institute. And if Jeffrey, you just want to just start off and basically explain how you got into working with self-employed folks and why.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, Nicole. It's so I launched the Self-Employed Business Institute months after my second book came out, which is called The Self-Employed Life. And I have a podcast called The Self-Employed Life as well. So there's a theme here. But here's why I stepped into building the Business Institute. Once my book was out, I realized that it filled a lot of needs. And now this book was written from my perspective, having been self-employed my entire life. I've actually never had a job. I've never received a paycheck. I sold eggs door to door when I was 14 years old and was a professional photographer by the age of 20. And I have literally always been self-employed. So when I wrote my book, I was really stepping into sharing what I find is a very different experience when you're self-employed. And what I have done for all these decades being self-employed is I refer to it as translating, having to translate the way the rest of the world thinks, the conventional world, into our unconventional lifestyle, but then also the very different strategies we need in business. So I wrote the book providing what I refer to as the self-employed ecosystem, which is kind of a three-part system. After the book was out, I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine, feeling really good about the book, but I had said, a book is a book. What I had noticed in 15 years of coaching other business owners is that while they were in a broad range of industries, they all had one thing in common. The one thing they had in common is that they were really good at what they do, but they were in industries where nobody taught them how to make money at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And this had been my reality. I'm highly trained as a photographer for 40 years. I went to photography school. I've got extensive training as a coach, professional speaker, podcaster, all these trainings, but nobody ever teaches us how to make money at these things and how to support our lives. So I said to my friend, I said, somebody needs to solve that problem. And she said
Right.
to me, why not you? I'm like, you're right. Why not me? So that was the impetus to launch what is now the Self-Employed Business Institute, so that we can provide high-level business education for self-employed business owners, almost all who are already in business. We don't focus on startups per se, but people that are out there and finding it as difficult as it really is.
So
Because
tell me, how do you tell people how do you teach people how to overcome this, how to make more money doing what they love to do? How do you do that?
Yeah, honestly, almost everything, and it sounds glib, but almost everything has to be turned upside down. And here's why. In the conventional business world, business is built on transactions, right? The conventional business world is transactional based. When you're self employed, almost regardless of what industry you're in, your business is built on relationships. Because one
Mm-hmm.
of the biggest differences when you're self employed is that every relationship counts. We want, if you have a product or service where you can create loyalty, you want people to come back over and over again, or you're reliant on our relationships. What we can't afford is the old fashioned Pareto principle, right? The Pareto principle states that 80% of your income comes from 20% of your clients. When you have a small business, a self employed business, you can't afford that, because what that's really saying is that you're wasting your time on 8 out of 10 people. If your income's coming from 20%, then you're wasting your time on 8 out of 10 people. When you're a small business, you can't afford that. You've invested a lot of time, money, and energy to acquiring those customers. You can't afford for every one of them, or almost all of them, to pay off. Okay,
Right.
so our businesses are built on relationships. So fundamentally, when you see transactional businesses give discounts for new customers, when you're self-employed or a small business, that's the last thing you want to do, because you want to honor your existing customers. Um, Conventional businesses refer to it as target marketing. In the Business Institute, we teach a strategy called hug marketing, right? Because it's a
Hug
different
marketing?
goal. Hug, right?
Okay.
Because it's a different goal. Because target marketing is like a shoot and spray and hope people respond. But the moment you think, if you're in a relationship based business, the moment you think of your audience as a target, they will feel targeted and they back
Mm-hmm.
up.
Mm-hmm.
Hug marketing is a very specific marketing system that's a series of concentric circles. So, what we're looking to do is take people from the outer circles, what I refer to as lurkers. Lurkers are the people that are following you on social media, watching your YouTube channel, listening to your podcast. You don't know them by name, but they've got your eyes and ears on you. What can you do to make them curious, to make them engaged, to make them connected, and then eventually convert to a client? But we
Right.
don't end there. Once they become a client, you want a hug client. And the hug clients are those that come back to you time and time again, or refer you, or if you were to see them in person, you would naturally give them a hug. Okay. So again, so much of our existence and to be successful being self-employed is to turn things upside down the way the conventional world looks at it and how we need to look at it. And here's the beautiful thing about it, Nicole, is that not only works, it feels better. And that's one of the biggest challenges for a lot of self-employed business owners is that typical conventional marketing strategies feel creepy, they feel pushy, we don't want to market ourselves that way. I believe in finding alignment with not only what works, but also feels good because we became self-employed to fulfill our dreams and to feel good about what we're doing.
Okay, and I have a really good question for you because I know that when I was looking into what you do a little bit prior to our chat today, right now, is how do you help people transition from, a corporate environment to being on their own? How do you do that?
Yeah.
That's a big
So
thing. It's
it's
very
a very
scary.
big thing, and it's so in the Self-Employed Business Institute really caters to most often people who are already self-employed, or maybe they left corporate within the last year to 3 years or even 5 years. All right. So, but my one-to-one clients, the people that I'm working with for minimally 6 months, more in-depth work, meeting with them a lot, highest investment, they are all clients transitioning from corporate to self-employment. That's what I specialize in as a one-to-one coach, because it is a big step, and I'm in great admiration. Like here, it's easy to think we're the boldest ones when you're self-employed, but I'll tell you what, Nicole, I don't think I would have the guts. Like having always been self-employed, I look at people leaving those steady paychecks and think that's gutsy, right? So the way to do it, for one, is give yourself a runway, because I believe in a safe leap. I'm not one of those coaches that are going to pump you up to tell you to jump off a cliff, because people have lives and emotions. They have mortgages, they have families, they have kids. I want a safe leap. The best way to create a safe leap is to plan it out. Minimally 6 months. I love even a year. I actually have a workbook I share with my clients that is a 12-month timeline, right? So you can like remember to get all your doctor and dentist visits taken care of while you're on somebody else's healthcare plan, right? So things to like really plan out, build your core
Mhm.
message, really figure out what your core message is, who's your ideal client, build the website. I want to build something on the side while we're winding down the corporate job, so that when you leave, you've got some momentum. And there's different markers, like behind the scenes when someone's getting ready to leave corporate. It's not just building the brand and building the business, but also creating the systems, right? Because having your systems, your product, your all your software decisions, have all that planned out. Because the last thing you want to do when you've walked out that door is to have any time or energy taken up with things that could have been done previously. What you need to
Right.
focus on at that point is client acquisition.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
like to get all the vendors, software decisions, offices set up, get all that set up ahead of time. Because truly, when most people, when they leave their corporate position, they are, even with a severance package or what have you, they're usually making a fraction of what they made, right?
Mhm.
So you have a gap that needs to be made up between where you're starting in your self-employed business and even getting up to your previous salary, or hopefully beyond it. There's going to be a gap. You want to close that gap as quickly as possible, because one thing I always worry about is people's stamina, whether it's they've left corporate, or even the reason I try to intervene in self-employed businesses usually between prior to 5 years is because we're humans. And anybody who's been out in the world building a business, cranking it out, working as hard as they can, they run out of steam after 5 years. And if they're
Mhm.
not getting indication of the results they want, they'll give up. And that to
Right.
me is the most hurtful thing. So you want to close that gap as quickly as possible financially.
Okay, no, this is great. And also, if I were to just ask you, what industry sectors do you, I'm sure you focus on, various entrepreneurs and self-employed people, but are there any specific sectors that you seem to attract into your business institute?
Yeah. Um, Coaches, consultants, and thought leaders, which kind of all
Okay.
fold in together, right? Because there's just a massive number of people. And as I like to say, I tend to work with people, air quotes, of a certain age, which is somewhere between 35 and 55. Although our oldest student in the Business Institute was 72 and our youngest was 32. But somewhere between 35 and 55 is kind of the sweet spot. So they tend to be people that have life experience, career experience, and likely are, you know, creating something. Either they've left corporate or they've got a business going or they're creating a new business, but it's going to be based on some area of expertise or some expert thought, some authority. So to me, coach, consultant, and thought leader often go hand in hand. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a process where which when someone wants to be a known thought leader, a published author, a successful coach or consultant, they need to build their authority and recognition. So that's the marketing strategy. The marketing strategy is putting out content, build your authority, have be known for something very specific, and that's something to work towards. So I call it the sidewalk test. Like if you were to walk past two people having a conversation on the sidewalk and your name came up and they said, "Oh, Nicole, she's the go-to expert for blank." Right? What
Mm-hmm.
would they say? And you have to work towards putting the words in people's mouth so that they know to say. Anybody that knows Brene Brown said, "Oh, Brene Brown, she's the go-to authority on," right? Everybody know vulnerability. Like everybody knows what she stands for, and
And
that's
that's
the
a
key.
good point. And that's a good point because many, many, many entrepreneurs out there will just give you paragraphs of
Correct.
answers and they're not concise and they go around and around and around and you
Yep.
still don't know what they do. It's
Exactly.
actually a
And
big problem.
yeah. And you can't wait for the world to figure it's kind of goes hand in hand. Like you can't just sit back and put everything out in the world without any what I refer to as a stake in the ground, right? So you're just putting everything out there and then you can't expect people to sift through that and figure out what you stand for.
They have
You
no
have to
patience, they'll just move
no.
on.
You have to do the
Yeah.
inside work to figure out what you stand for, who you stand up for, and make yourself known in that space so that if you were to walk past two people on the sidewalk, they'd be saying exactly what you took control of wanting to be known for in the first place.
I love it. So, Jeffrey, what's the best place for people to reach you if they want to connect?
Check out selfemployedbusinessinstitute.com. It's a 5-month curriculum. It's life changing. It is all self employed business owners led by me as someone who's been self employed for 40 years, the ins and outs. I want to save people time and effort for all the reasons I said earlier. Like, I want people to get to the point of having successful businesses and the lives of their dreams as quickly as possible because I don't want anybody to run out of steam, run out of energy, or run out of money trying to fulfill their dreams because then too much is lost in the process. So selfemployedbusinessinstitute.com.
Awesome. I love it. And just one more question. Do you have others working with you, or is it just you on your own?
Actually, I'm fortunate. I'm blessed to have my daughter work with me full time. There's no one on the planet that thinks more like me than she does. Like it's kind of remarkable. She's like my second head. She's my middle child, and kind of like that almost that soulmate relationship. So I've got my daughter full time. I've got a podcast team of 4 people that pull that thing off twice a week. um, and then a whole team of virtual assistants, and plus, a very committed editor. I'm just beginning my 3rd book, which is about self-doubt, by the way. So that'll be a really fun topic to dive into. So I'm surrounded with a very supportive team.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.